Welcome everyone to the Muckin Around Podcast with me, Tom Hawkins, the director of Springbridge. And today we've got a guest on our show, James Cooper, who is from Envar, and he's going to talk to us all about compost and how compost is made and all the processes involved in that. Welcome, James.
Thank you very much.
And James, could you give us a bit of a background in yourself and your personal journey and that kind of thing, really, and how you've sort of got into this, really?
Yeah, so I think I was interested in waste right from a really young age. Had an uncle who worked on a landfill.
Okay.
Used to ride on the back of a compactor. You wouldn't be allowed to do that nowadays. But that was, I used to do jobs up there. That was my first introduction to the waste industry, I think. And I quite often used to liberate things out of skips as a 12-year-old on my bike and bring them home and repair them and sell them in the local newspaper.
That's the definition of recycling, I think. That yeah.
Well, also, it made me money too. So I think that was, without knowing it, I think I was always destined to be in the waste industry. And after graduating from university, I went onto a management training scheme with a big recycler in the UK, and eventually transitioned towards organics and organics recycling, and that's where I've stayed pretty much ever since.
So organics would be like, covering essentially like green waste, bushes, that kind of thing. All of anything that sort of rots down. Would I be right in saying? Or?
Yeah, anything that essentially comes from where it had been grown.
Right.
So,
okay.
So that could be crops. That could be garden waste, that could be food waste, or anything similar like that, manures.
So did you sort of start doing compost specifically, or did you sort of go from, another form of organic waste and then find yourself within compost? Was compost the first thing you started, or did you sort of?
No, I've been in quite a few different parts of the waste industry. So I started off actually running household waste sites in North Wales and Stoke and Staffordshire. There was a composting element to that. So we had an in-vessel composting facility in North Wales in Wrexham, and some others up in the hills of North Wales, which I got involved in, and more so. Eventually, as life happens, my wife is from Suffolk. She wanted to move home.
Yeah.
So I ended up joining an organics company that was doing just compost down here.
Yes.
Because I had that experience in composting.
Yeah.
And then naturally fell into that industry.
Into that industry, yeah. And was there anything that surprised you, or in terms of like, is there any sort of differences in from where you'd worked previously to sort of composting specifically with the recycling and sort of in the industry? Or
no, there's no major surprises as compared to the rest of the industry. Its treatment is very much, you take a thing, you do something to it, and then you produce a thing, much like you would in a factory. And all of waste is the same as that. It's just a factory.
Cool.
Setting.
Yeah.
The one thing that surprised me about organics, still does to this day, is the sheer volume of stuff. It's, when you look at a site and you think, like, we're doing 100,000 tons, you think, well, how has anyone got a garden left?
Yes, yeah, exactly, yeah, that's true. And of course, I guess bushes as well and green waste isn't that heavy, so it's not like a piece of metal is quite a chunk. So like 1,000 ton of metal is a different 1,000 ton of bushes is a lot larger volume than 1,000 ton of metal. So
it is.
Yeah, so it's quite a lot of capacity and going through a plant, I would imagine.
Yeah, there is, and it makes you appreciate actually how much grows on an annual basis.
Yeah.
And how much water falls from the sky.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
All of that biomass has come from the air and the water, so it's quite impressive to see how much has actually grown over that time. So
are you and you've obviously been with Envar now for quite a while, and what are your sort of personal goals and values? What are you sort of working? Where are you aiming to take this with in combination with Envar going forward?
We're trying to obviously continue to expand the business, continue to make what we do much more efficient, and make better quality products. Our products are already, as you know,
they are good. Yeah.
But if we can move into producing materials which can help replace peat, for example, that's a good thing, or to make our materials easier to use for people, such as easier to spread, or
is peat, I mean, just on a side note, is peat still common in the, is there still a lot of peat around? And
much less so. It's still used.
Is it?
It's still used, yeah. But finding a replacement for it is difficult.
Yes, yeah. It used to come from, would it be, a lot of it came from Ireland, I think, didn't it? I think the peat. Yeah. You used to get the old Irish moss peat, I remember, in the bales, didn't you? I think and I haven't seen that in garden centres and things that much now, being sold. So it's all going over to green waste compost and that kind of thing, I guess, which is more, would it be more sustainable?
Well, yeah, because you're not digging carbon out of the ground, essentially.
Yes,
However, finding the right blend for that replacement is difficult.
Yes,
it's hard work, and a compost is one element of that.
Yeah,
it's probably not the whole thing.
Yeah,
but we're looking into those opportunities, and into opportunities with blending with other materials, and like I said, producing a different format of compost, such as pellets, to allow us to see what we can do there. So we're looking into all sorts of opportunities.
So the current sort of process for composting, where do you get the majority of this green waste from, and then how do you what is it from, sort of, house, is it household green waste and or commercial, or a bit of everything? Or
it's the vast majority is local authority collected green waste.
So the bin that I would have in my house, basically, that I fill up, when I cut the grass or whatever, that all goes into the green bin and gets collected.
Yeah, so you have your local authority local bin round collections. You got your local authority skip, HWRC, so Household Waste Recycling Centre.
Yeah,
people take it there, put it in the big skip.
Yeah.
So that material tends to be what we call more brashy, so more twiggy, larger pieces.
Yeah.
Whereas your household collections are more grassy and thicker and usually more dense.
Yes.
Across all of our sites, that's the bulk of material we take in. We do take some material from small gardeners, some material from commercial skips.
Yeah.
But that's the lower end of it. We also take in on our IVC sites, that's in-vessel composting. So that's a slightly different form of composting. We take in commingled food and green. So that's where your food waste is mixed in with your green waste in a bin and collected together. And
is that any food, like literally, when you say food waste, like banana skins to sort of, leftover lasagna or whatever it might be, literally. And does that all get mixed together then?
That's mixed together with the green waste in the bin, collected by the council, comes in as a mixed load, and then is processed through our in-vessel facility. Right.
Okay. Yeah. So, that's pretty interesting. And then, so are you responsible then for the stuff comes in on the bin lorry straight into the plant as a rule? Then you wouldn't you don't get involved in the collections and that kind of side of things.
We don't particularly get involved in collections. Our sister company has collections.
Right. Okay.
So, Country Style Recycling, they do collections. However, we at Envar would usually take it either straight from the RCV, so straight from the bin wagon, would come in and tip it on our sites.
Yeah.
Or it would be bulked up at a transfer station. So it just depends how logistics allow.
Right.
The council might take it to a transfer station, then put it on a larger lorry, and it'll come to us in 27 tons at a time.
Yeah.
Rather than 2 or 3 tons at a time.
And then once it lands into the plant, so you've as you say, depending on whether it's what type of composting plant it is, you've got the waste that's arrived. Do you just put it all through the same process? Do you have to split different types of bushes from heavier, denser grass cuttings, or does it all sort of does it all go through the same process?
It all goes through the same process. There is a a process of blending,
Mm-hmm.
because if you put, you probably know from compost at home, or I'm sure many of the viewers would, if you put a big pile of grass together in a clump,
Yeah.
that will get hot,
Yes.
but it won't get much air through it. And you go back 3 or 4 weeks later, it still looks like grass. So we blend and mix the waste together to get structure into it.
Right.
So
Okay.
so we want a good mix of bushes and twigs and sticks, mixed with your grass and your food if you're in an IVC, or
Yeah.
to open that up and allow the structure to breathe, so you allow air to get through that.
Okay. So
composting
this
material.
is when it's in the sort of it sits in a pile basically, and then you sort of turn it. Do you over? You just you keep turning the material over.
Yeah, so the material comes in, we shred it,
Yeah.
and it's usually quite a rough shred.
Can you shred anything, or like do you have to be careful what you're shredding? I mean, like like what people put in the bins basically. Like, can you just literally throw the whole bin through the shredder and the shredder will take it? Or
Yeah, practically.
Yeah?
Yeah, obviously there's certain, like any waste stream, you get contamination.
Okay, yeah.
So I've found all sorts of things in bins before.
Yeah,
lawnmowers
yeah.
and whatever else. We pull those out generally before they go in the shredder.
Yeah.
Because they're not something you want to shred.
Yeah.
And then we shred the material, and we will put in what we call oversize back into the front end. So oversize is the large wood, the large sticks that
Yeah.
don't form the compost. They'll come back to the front end. What they do is they add more carbon into the front end
Okay.
to balance against your nitrogen. So grass is a high nitrogen, and that makes the breakdown better, and also adds structure. So it allows air to move through the material, and the air is really key to composting.
Because I always wondered about the wood and the green waste, because you get like on the output side you get obviously you get like wood chips and you get compost. I presume that starts at what you put in. So if you get something that's like, if you get wood within the sort of the green waste that's coming in, do you tend to separate that and sort of keep that as just a pile of wood that then goes through to create a wood chip, or
Not
do you try and
usually.
compost it?
No, not usually. Not you might get something huge come in. It's not often, such as a big tree root, that you'd have to pay special attention to breaking it up.
Right.
But you wouldn't generally extract wood on the front end.
Right. Okay. So you just put it all through, and the wood would compost down in the same way that like grass cuttings and bushes would, in the same time frame.
No, and that's what comes back out the back end as.
Oh, I see.
oversize.
That comes back
So
round.
that goes round. It keeps going round the system.
Right.
We do it. You can extract some of that wood and find a use for some of that wood at the end of the process.
Mm-hmm.
But generally, it comes back round to the front end and is reprocessed again. Into the product.
And whenever I've done sort of tours of various composting plants and stuff. They've got a line of a lot of lines. I think they call them windrows. Is that right? Yeah, windrows, which is essentially big piles in straight lines all the way going down. So what's that then? What's the sort of what is that? A weekly cycle or?
No, so it depends again on what you're treating, the type of waste you're getting in. Some sites are more heavy on your brashy waste, and some sites are more heavy on your council collected waste, and that dictates the time it takes to break down.
Okay.
Similarly, with the equipment you have available on site will change the amount of time something takes to break down. But a windrow is just one long pile. There's nothing complicated to it.
Yeah.
There's nothing. There's no chemicals added. There's no special formula, apart from you initially get your carbon nitrogen ratios right and you blend right to get structure. It's put into a long row. The air naturally, not percolates, that's the wrong word. It naturally convects through the material.
Okay.
And keeps that microbiological process going inside it. We turn it, so we'll then put a digger on top of it and turn it over. Or some of the larger sites have turning machines which will run along them and turn.
I think I've seen those. Yeah, they go like up and down with a big sort of thing that sort of just keeps moving it around. Yeah,
it looks horrendous, but it looks like something out of a movie. But all we're doing by turning it is keeping the free airspace open within the windrow.
Okay.
So that's just quite literally the gaps between the particles.
Right.
And all that does is allow the air to
breathe, basically.
It
just allows it to breathe.
Because over time, if you imagine a pile, it sinks and collapses and compresses.
Yeah.
So the turning it is not really to introduce air; it just opens it up again.
Right.
To allow it to breathe by itself.
And it's there's like the microorganisms that are within the compost and the waste that do the work, basically, that do the magic, shall we say?
Yeah, absolutely. So, those piles will sit at between 60 and 70 degrees.
Right.
All of that heat is
that even outside? That's not the heat, because you got some that are inside in heated things, haven't you? As well?
No, we had no heat, not even in the IVC.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So all of the heat produced, both if you're IVC processing in tunnels, or if you're externally processing, is produced through respiration.
Right, so the compost generates its own heat, basically.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And that can be, middle of winter, -5, you'll still get 60, 70 degrees inside of winter.
Really? Yeah. It's sort of a shame you can't sort of capture that heat, really, isn't it? And use it for other things, because that's it's quite powerful, isn't it? There must be a lot of energy, sort of, it's almost just being let out, really, I suppose. But
yeah, it is. It's a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And people have tried to capture it before, but it's very difficult.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, and it sounds like quite consistent as well, because it's like it's almost like it's a guaranteed. You're guaranteed to get 60, 70 degrees regardless of what's happening outside, which is quite good, I suppose, if you could capture it. But
it's a very good insulator, isn't it? Green waste and so it insulates itself quite well.
Yeah,
you can have snow on the top of a windrow and it still be really warm inside.
Yeah, that's And how do you, with things like the carbon and nitrogen ratios, do you sort of have to test for that, or like how do you just sort of have a recipe that works normally?
Yeah, so we try and avoid having very high nitrogen and low carbon.
Yeah,
because that causes issues.
But how do you know what the nitrogen and carbon are? Do you is there a sort of way of calculating?
There isn't really. No, composting is a very touchy. You have to hold it, you have to smell it, you have to know what you're looking at and have the experience of it. We do validate what we're doing is correct, I suppose, but we do that after the fact.
Okay.
So we'll send a sample off of our blended material just to see what it was like, and we'll do that every so often.
Yeah.
And say, right, okay, we know what we're doing, and we know our experience and our training is correct by sending the sample off.
It's more like an audit, really. You're sort of you're not. It's not feasible or practical to test every single pile that's going through the thing, but like if you test, every once a month or something, whatever it might be, I suppose. Yeah. You would. And you get roughly the same result, then you can say that, well, the whole lot must be similar to that.
And that's it. And we are simply validating what we have done.
Yes.
And by doing that, we prove that we're continuing to get it right, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely.
And and that training and that skill comes over time.
Yeah.
You can't be taking a sample, testing it, waiting. There's just too much to do.
No, absolutely. So it wouldn't be practical. It'd just hold the whole thing up, wouldn't it? Yeah. So the compost goes into these sort of windrows, and it and you keep turning it and turning it. How long does it take to go from essentially bushes to a product that you can use, in your garden, put back into your garden to improve your plants?
Depending on the site and the process and the machinery used, usually most compost sites, and not just ours, between 7 and 12 weeks.
Okay, so it can be as short as 7 then. Yeah. Is that weather dependent, would you say?
Yeah, so in the winter when you have higher carbon and less nitrogen, your composting is generally a little bit slower.
Right, yeah.
Because the nitrogen speeds it up and the carbon slows it down, essentially.
Does the outside temperature make any difference?
No.
Doesn't?
No, hardly any at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'd have thought in the cold it would all be a bit slower, and like in the hot it'd be flying.
No, it's generally slower in the winter because you have less coming in,
Yeah.
so you're not under as much pressure to move things through. And the material is generally higher carbon content, which composts slower because your carbon content is from your wood and your brash, your heavy lignin material.
Yeah.
So that composts slower anyway.
So once the compost is it's all rotted down to the point where you're happy with it, that it's a good product to sell. Do you then have do you have to process again, like with the screeners and things like that, and then you sort of because you've got a couple of different products, I believe.
Yeah. So we make agricultural grades and horticultural grades.
Okay.
Yeah, and essentially the only difference between them is the size of the particles.
Right. Okay.
Agriculture tends to take larger particles, so 20 millimeter.
Is that because it's just over a bigger area that they're spreading it over? It's not as important to get the big lumps and stuff out of it?
I think a lot of agricultural, and I'm not an agricultural person, but a lot of agricultural people and farmers, they like the coarser material because it has a better effect on their soil.
Right, okay. Yeah.
It's better at breaking.
I'd imagine it's easier to produce as well, isn't it? Because surely the smaller you have to sort of screen stuff down to, the smaller that it gets harder, especially in the wintertime. I know from screening topsoil that trying to remove large, trying to put topsoil through in the winter and getting, a very fine topsoil is very difficult. So I imagine compost is the same. It's a lot easier.
Yeah.
To screen to a bigger size, but then obviously the quality maybe.
Yeah, and there's tricks of the trade you can use to get around that as well. If you're going to be needing to screen a batch that's going to be turned into 10 millimeter, that's going to blind over the screen, as you say, you might think, right, okay, well, I'll turn that a week or 2 weeks before I'm going to screen it.
Yeah.
To try and get some moisture out of it. So as when I screen it, it's not going to block up my screen.
Yeah, that's true.
And so there's things like that we do. Don't get me wrong, you can still be stood in a screener when it's pouring with rain at 7 a.m. trying to dig it out with a spade. I've been there.
Yeah.
As I'm sure you have. But yeah, we do have little things we do to try and improve our chances.
Just in terms of like keeping up the quality and stuff with the compost, would it be that you're not magicians? If the waste comes in contaminated, is that your biggest problem, would you say? As in like if the green waste coming in has got plastics in it and stuff, is it very hard to remove that sort of stuff? Is that or is there other issues with quality that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's our biggest issue. It's an issue, but there's plenty of them. The waste does come in contaminated. We try and pull as much as we can out at the front end.
Yeah.
And we spend a lot of money on removing the plastic or metal or whatever it might be at the back end as well. So we have machines that suck plastic from the belts and blow it. We have tables that vibrate and shake things into different fractions. We have machines that remove stones. And none of them are perfect.
Yeah.
But the aim is we have to meet certain requirements and make a good quality product. So if you can remove the contamination at the front end, that's great. But there's always going to be an element that you have to remove at the back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, we use your product all year round. We mix it in with our topsoil. You can also buy it in, just on its own as a compost, and it is generally very consistent. To be honest with you, it comes through, and it's if you showed me the compost in December and showed it to me in June or July, very hard to tell the difference, which I suppose is a good thing, really, to be honest. It's obviously you're doing it in quite a large scale and things like that. Have you seen any ways that you can improve on the processes that you're doing? Have you got any ideas in the future that you might want to implement and stuff to improve the sort of process?
Yeah, the process itself of making compost was a natural process.
Yes.
There's no real additional inputs or things you can do to it to make it any more efficient than it already is. But what we can do is make our processes more efficient. So make the way in which we handle it. We've just bought 2 very large 30-ton Komatsu loading shovels.
Yeah.
And that means, we can load a lorry in 2.5-3 buckets.
Is that what it takes? Yeah.
Rather than 10.
Yes.
And what that means is you reduce your fuel use. So it's efficiencies like that we're pushing across the business, really.
Yeah. I remember I went down to a few years ago, one of the sites that you West London Composting that you run, and they had I think it was at the time 6 or 7 loading shovels, and they would just and I was amazed really at like the amount of movements that it took to sort of, obviously it's not just loading the vehicles, you've got to like push all the stuff up, you've got to move it from one windrow to another and move it along, and like I was surprised at, considering the size of the site, that like there would be enough work for 6 or 7 loading shovels, but clearly there was, because they were all it was quite it was very, it was very, very busy. And so you're thinking about doing like pellets and stuff, you've got like an idea to make compost pellets. What?
Yep. Yeah.
What's that then?
We're looking into that at the moment. Essentially looking into producing other products out of the same material, which might appeal to wider markets. So that's one of our development opportunities at the moment.
Yeah.
We're looking into that with coffee and with compost, and we produce a coffee compost.
Right. Okay.
At the moment, that you can buy on our website.
Okay. What's that? Just specifically, is it just coffee on its own then? Is it like?
It's compost that's made with an element of coffee grounds in it.
Right. Okay.
So
you get the coffee grounds as a separate from the rest of the green waste. You must have sort of an avenue where I assume coffee shops and whatever.
That's it, yeah.
And you can sort of then so that you're getting that coming in separately to the sort of standard green waste from people's household bins and things like that.
That's it.
Yeah.
And we blend that in and make a compost. So.
And how do you see the future? I mean, there's obviously, it's always, it's a popular topic and an important topic for the environment and being green and climate change and everything like that. Do you see any efficiencies coming in there with new technology and things like that? In the future, or is it is it not there yet?
I think personally, composting is one of the simplest methods. I mean, nature's been doing it for billions of years.
Correct.
I mean, I don't really see how it can be massively improved upon.
Yeah.
We can do it more efficiently. We can make better quality and continue to improve that, and we can look at innovative products. But the actual process of composting is essentially as simple as it can be.
Yes.
There's a lot of there's possibility around getting gas from food waste, and that's what a lot of people are doing now with anaerobic digestion.
Yeah, I've heard about that. I've seen that there's quite a few plants, I think, opening up, aren't there? In the sort of the capturing. Yeah, they're capturing the gas that's produced from compost. Is that right?
Well, not from compost, but from other organic materials.
Okay, right.
Where you would take an organic material and you're using the bacteria essentially that's in a cow's stomach. It's a big concrete cow, and you produce methane and pump that into the grid, and the resultant material that comes out of that, you can then either compost or spread to land, and it's just another form of organic fertilizer.
Right.
Similar to compost, but for the larger brashier material, composting is always going to be the best way to treat it.
I suppose you could I mean, it's not something that Envar specifically or any compost supplier could do, but eventually the machinery and stuff will get more efficient as well, and we might move away from diesel engine loading shovels, maybe going to electric, which could be produced through solar energy or wind energy or whatever it might be. So I guess that's more of an industry wide thing, that's coming from people in the chain that you don't have a lot of control over. So I suppose from that point of view, that will start to that'll start to come into effect and probably move away from diesel and things.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully that'll percolate through. We try to use electricity if possible.
Yeah.
We've installed static lines with electricity where that's possible.
Do you find they're more reliable, or are they less reliable than, or not a lot in it?
I don't think there's a lot in it.
Right.
Obviously, servicing and that type of cost is less with electricity.
Yeah.
Mechanical breakdowns, non-engine related, are the same.
Yeah.
Because the screen still wears. If it's a screen or a shredder, the hammers will still wear, electricity or diesel.
Yeah.
You probably save quite a bit of faff time, so there's not, you don't have to diesel up a machine that runs on electricity. You just have to turn it on.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the way forward, really. I know that a few loading shovel producers were looking into gas-powered loading shovels and gas-powered tractors.
Oh yeah.
Whether that's still a thing, I'm not sure, but yeah, we'll keep looking into it.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a few bits, with people like JCBs and stuff that are sort of producing. Was it I think there was hydrogen, some sort of hydrogen engine. I think that was.
JCB's come out with a hydrogen engine.
Yeah, whether that or I think they're all struggling to get their to get it sort of sorted out. You know what I mean? Like get the technology sort of suitable for the industry. I think reliable and cost effective as well. But I suppose naturally it'll start to things will start to evolve and
the driver's definitely there. Diesel costs a lot of money. So,
that's true. Yeah.
If we can make it more efficient and move away from it eventually, then that's the right thing to do.
Are you, as an industry? I know they brought in a rule about construction isn't allowed to use red diesel anymore. Are you still allowed to use red diesel in that industry?
No.
Oh, that was taken away as well, was it?
Taken away,
yeah. So it's all on white diesel.
Yeah, that's the entirety of the waste industry.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, no, excellent. Is there any sort of misconceptions that you find that people have with regards to the whole compost or the whole process or anything like that you can think of?
I think a lot of time people don't understand it.
Yeah.
They will, rightly or wrongly, make assumptions about how the process works. I think there's a common misconception that there's a lot more goes into it than really does.
Yes.
Because it is a natural process. There is no bacteria added, no chemicals added to the mix. We don't heat it up. We don't add external heat. We don't burn anything to heat it up. We don't do anything like that. It's all done naturally and by itself, as it would on a forest floor.
Yes.
Just on a bigger scale.
All
we do is help nature to speed itself up by, when you make a windrow and you create that column, all you do is allow it to retain its heat.
Yes.
Ever since I've worked in the waste industry, where I ran household waste sites, and there's a big skip full of green waste that was steaming in the winter.
Yeah.
I've had many calls where people have called the fire brigade because they think it's on fire.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It's not. It's just steam.
Yeah.
From that, obviously, windrow when it's 70 degrees inside and it's -5 outside.
Yeah.
And that temperature difference is going to make it steam.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions around it, but I think it's probably a lack of understanding rather than it is a.
Do you ever get problems with supply and demand? As in, so you get a lot. Presumably, I mean, I'm guessing that you would get more green waste in the spring and summer months than you would in the winter because things aren't growing. Would I be right in saying that?
Usually, although the last 3 years, I'd say, have probably been a bit different.
Right.
Because the weather's been all over the place.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, we have supply and demand, so we have a lot more demand in the spring for finished compost, than we do the rest of the year.
Winter, autumn and winter, yeah.
Incoming material demands are highest after Easter. That's when it usually starts. You have we've always referred to it as the two peaks. So it peaks kind of early spring, May time.
Yeah.
Then in the summer, usually when it starts to get hot in the summer holidays, the growing will slow because there's less rain, the weather's hotter. So everything tends to turn a bit brown.
Yeah.
And then as you're coming out at the end of summer, as things start to get wet again, you'll have another peak.
Right.
And then
okay.
that'll drop right off down in the winter as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, you'll have 2 peaks of incoming, and yeah, in spring everybody wants compost.
Yeah. I know a few people at home probably, dabble in home composting and things like that. What would be, something for them that they could do at home that might help them to sort of get a faster turnaround on their compost bin, or, a better quality of sort of coming out of it? Have you got any advice for them?
Yeah. I make compost myself at home, despite having thousands of tons of work I could take home.
I thought you'd had enough of that then.
You'd think I'd have had enough, wouldn't you? And quite a lot of us actually in Envar are keen growers. We all grow fruit, vegetables, flowers, that type of thing.
Yeah.
I use 2 compost bins, and one of the best ways to get that to compost effectively, I know at home I'm never going to get the heat in it in the winter, so it just sits there and does nothing in the winter.
Yeah.
There's not enough of it. So
that's volume, is it? It's just literally.
It's just volume. Yeah. It's in a black bin, which helps because of the sunlight.
Yeah.
But it's not gonna do much in the winter.
Right.
But what I do to improve its chances of producing a good compost in the summer is I mix in high carbon materials.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm mowing the grass a lot. I've got a lot of food waste and stuff, peelings from the kitchen. So I try and mix in twigs and bits of wood chip and some cardboard if I can.
Yeah.
Because that carbon helps that nitrogen break down effectively. And I try not and crush it in the bin.
Right. Okay.
I've got an allotment. I was down there the other day. I see someone standing up on the compost bin crushing it in.
No good for it.
Well, you just don't get the air moving through it.
Yeah.
So essentially, you end up with something that's that essentially is like you would do on a farm. You ensile it.
Yeah. You're just starving it of oxygen, aren't you? Really, I guess. And it just can't. So none of the bacteria can do their thing because they can't get the oxygen in, I guess.
Yeah, and if you have a pile at the back of your garden and you keep on putting grass on that and grass on that and grass on that till it's up here, it might sink down the next year, but it'll still look like grass on the inside.
It's a bit like why the athletes, when they go to Kenya to train, like the marathon runners, they always go training in Kenya because the air's thinner, so that when they come back down to normal level, the air's there's a lot more oxygen in the air, and they run faster, don't they? And I guess bacteria is the same. It needs its oxygen to work and to do its thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting, all this. I think, to be honest, it's it's certainly, it's something that's potentially, it sounds simple, but there's certainly a lot of things that you can do, that you can improve the process and make it a lot better for yourself, get the better quality product out at the end of it. And obviously, you guys at Envar have spent many years perfecting the process.
Yeah, we try our best. Yeah, people sometimes think we're a bit mad because we'll walk around site and grab handfuls and sniff it, which is not what you'd expect people to do with waste. But you can tell a lot from that. So you can tell how warm the compost is and if it needs turning, things like that, just from smell. Yeah. People do think we're odd, but we carry on.
Excellent. Well, that's great. Well, thank you very much, James, for coming on. I've really learned a lot. I hope everyone else has got some learned about the whole composting process, got some tips and advice on if they're doing it at home, and just generally we're just trying to get a better understanding of what our products are that are for sale, and so that people can understand what they're buying and how to use it. So thanks very much for coming on, and if anybody wants to check out their website, it's Envar Composting, and we sell all their products on our website as well, Springbridge. So that's excellent. Thanks very much.
It's been informative. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers.